Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I know I've been gone for a bit, but I've been working on this for a while now. This was supposed to be the 5k subscriber special, so first off, thank you all for the support. Hitting 5k means a lot and I appreciate every single one of you. Today, we're doing a full updated Deepwoken Oath tier list. A ton has changed, new oaths dropped, old ones got reworked. So it felt like the right time to put together a fresh list. Just a heads up, this tier list is mostly focused on depths PvP, since that's what I specialize in. I haven't kept up much with the overworld meta. I've only had a couple of fights in Voidheart, but those were actually insane. So yeah, keep in mind this list is coming from a depths perspective. If you're only here for a specific oath, I got you. This video has chapters, so you can skip around as you like. Also, this one's on the longer side, so grab something to eat and chill. I know some of you will be watching my vids while eating anyway, so yeah. Quick reminder, the Deep Saviors Discord is getting a full rework soon, so feel free to join up at discord.gg/deepsaviors. And I've got even more big projects lined up for the channel, so definitely stay tuned. And hey, at 6k subs, I'm doing a Red Death giveaway, so if you're not subbed yet, now's the time. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First up on the list is Blindseer, a really solid and underrated oath when it comes to depths ganking. What makes Blindseer stand out is how balanced it is. It's not purely support and it's not just damage. It brings a good mix of offensive pressure and team utility, which makes it adaptable in pretty much any situation. Let's talk about Mind Suit, since that's probably the most important support tool here. Yeah, the healing isn't massive, but the fact that it can heal multiple teammates at once is actually pretty clutch, especially in messy depths fights where your whole squad is constantly taking chip damage. That AoE healing gives your team breathing room and helps reset momentum mid-fight, something Linkstrider can't do as it only heals one person at a time. And now for offense, Blindseer has been getting a lot more attention recently, at least here in EU, thanks to a combo that's popped up in the current meta. If you uppercut into Crystal Impale, you get a full knockdown. Not just a little ragdoll, but a kind that actually stuns and locks the enemy in place. That sets you up for a confirmed Sightless Beam, which is one of the hardest hitting moves Blindseer has. Landing with that combo can take off around 1.5 bars, which is honestly huge in a gank. But here's the catch. Sightless Beam locks you in during the entire animation. You can't parry, dodge or block, so while you're fighting it, you're basically stuck in place. If someone flanks you or third parties during the beam, you're screwed. So yeah, it hits hard, but it's risky if you're not careful with spacing or timing. There are other ways to confirm the beam, like using Iceberg with Frost Draw investment, but those aren't as consistent or safe and they require you to build around it more. That's why most Blindseer setups tend to rely heavily on this one combo to get real value. All that considered, great support, a powerful offensive option, but reliant on setup and not the safest in chaotic depths fights where you can't always predict what's happening. So for me, Blindseer goes into high B tier. Next up, we've got Jetstriker, and man, this oath has fallen hard lately. If I made this tier like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jetstriker would have been sitting comfortably at the top of S tier. Honestly, it might have deserved a whole tier of its own back then. The reason? That ridiculous mobility. If you didn't have Jetstriker yourself, you had no shot at catching someone who did. They could scale walls, escape fights instantly, dash to anything. It was like playing a whole nother game. Ganks basically turned into who can run the fastest. But thankfully, that changed with a recent nerf patch. Jetstriker's movement now has the longer cooldowns during combat, and wall scaling got hit hard too. That alone brought it back down to earth. Now, the oath still gives a few nice perks. The plus 5 HP is always good to have, but the only real standout right now is Jet Kick, and even then it's mostly useful if you're running a heavy weapon. The mantra windup is super fast, and the talent that teleports you to whoever you just flourished makes for a great combo extender or follow-up tool. But here's the thing, that's kinda all it has now. Once you're actually in combat, Jetstriker doesn't really offer that much mobility anymore. You've got 2 mantras and that flourish interaction, and that's it. The core identity of the oath, high speed movement and chase potential, just isn't what they used to be. It's not bad by any means, and if you're running certain weapons, especially heavy ones, you can still get good value out of it. but in terms of what it brings to depth ganking, the impact has dropped off hard. So yeah, Jetstriker lands in B tier for now. Alright, now let's talk about Oathless. Now this one's kinda in a weird spot, since it's the definition of a jack of all trades, master of none. Since it doesn't give you any flashy mantras or insane passives like the other oaths, but instead it gives you more mantra slots and most importantly, resistance to oath-based true damage. And that's actually kind of huge in depth ganks, because most high tier mantras deal true damage to oath effects, and Oathless is literally the only option that lets you reduce that kind of damage at all. So if you're facing people that run, for example, Blindseer, having that resistance gives you a subtle but very real edge in survivability. That being said, Oathless isn't flashy, it doesn't give you any new talents, no extra mobility, no massive utility or burst. It's just you, your build, and a few extra mantra slots to play around with. And that's not a bad thing. For some people, that's just the dream. But when you stack it up against other oaths that offer unique mantras, passives, mobility tools, and extra talents, it's hard to justify picking Oathless unless you have a very specific build in mind that benefits from that extra flexibility. So yeah, it's reliable, flexible, and even a little underrated in some matchups, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't do enough to push it higher. So I'm placing Oathless in B tier. Next up is Visionshaper, and oh boy, this oath has fallen hard. Visionshaper used to be kinda cool back in the day, but now it's basically a shell of what it was. And to be honest, it's pretty much unusable in depth ganks unless you're trying to just meme. First problem, you need 50 charisma to even unlock it. And like, what build is running 50 charisma right now, unless you're going for some extremely specific cheese setup? That's already a huge tax on your stats for what little you get. Then there's the clone, which is supposed to be the big selling point of the oath, and it dies in 2 or 3 hits, no exaggeration. You summon it and blink, it's already gone. It doesn't stay up long enough to be useful in a real gank, and you can't even set up proper combos before it disappears. And don't even get me started on the AI. Sometimes the clone just decides it's done with life and wanders off into the void. It won't stay locked onto your target, it just walks around. Like, what is this oath even about? I actually made a whole video talking about some of the issues with Deepwoken, and I covered Visionshaper in it. And I kid you not, Agamatsu himself reacted to that vid and he crashed out reading the patch notes where Visionshaper got nerfed again. It was already dead and they just decided to kick the horse. So yeah, unless the devs do a full rework or some major buffs, Visionshaper is 100% D tier right now, for both depths, overworld, or whatever you want to use it for. Alright, now we're getting into the real oaths. Let's talk about Arcwarder. This oath is basically the true definition of an all-rounder. You want movement? You've got it. Damage reduction? Yup. Strong mantras? Absolutely. Like, Arcwarder low-key checks every box for what you want in a depth ganking setup. Most of its power comes from the arc suit, which is just straight up busted right now. When it's activated, you can chain short dashes that, if we're being real, rival all Jetstriker levels of agility. And the best part? Those dashes have no cooldown. So over time, you're inevitably catching up to Jetstrikers or escaping ganks even faster. The double jump you get with Arc Suit is also super underrated. It's not just for mobility, it helps you scale walls, dodge AoEs, and even go off-screen in 1v1s to bait or reposition for some wild mix-ups. But mobility is just one piece. Arcwarder gives you a flat 10% damage reduction at all times, and if you stack that with Reinforce, you're sitting on a total of 20%. In depth fights, where everything hits hard and fast, that kind of mitigation is crazy valuable. It means you survive longer and give your team more time to follow up. And it doesn't stop there. If you're up against cheese builds, stuff like Nemesis, Detonation, Tears of Edenkite, crits, or really any enchant, Arcwarder just says, nah bro, I'm good. Press a button and you completely negate all of it. That single mechanic alone can shut down entire strategies. Now for the mantras. Both of them are actually great. Arcwave with Bloodless can hit multiple enemies and give you back a ton of HP, which is huge in big group fights. And Arc Beam is just wild. It does good damage, applies both Flame Burn and Thunder Stun, and if your opponent is slow and you're in the air, it even auto-executes them. All this, by the way, for only 40 stat investment, which is less than what Visionshaper demands, by the way, just to summon a bugged clone. So yeah, Arcwarder, no question, S tier, easily one of the best oats for depth ganks right now. Up next, we've got Starkindred, aka the Bird Special. If you've been in the depths anytime in the last couple of weeks, you've probably seen at least 4 or 5 Starkindreds in every single server. And it's no surprise. This oat went from being kinda slept on to meta out of nowhere once Jetstriker got nerfed. See, while everyone was focused on Jetstriker's movement, Starkindred was just quietly waiting, and once people started experimenting, it took off, literally. So what's a bird build, you ask? It's basically a build focused on voiding people instead of fighting them. You dash over the edge of the map, pop Flaming Scourge with Reversal Spark, and drag your opponents with you over the void. Then, just as they start panicking, you hit your Starkindred wings and fly right back to safety, while they plummet straight into the abyss. No parries, no M1s, no fair fight, just void cheese at its finest. And what makes it even better? The oat's mantras actually support that playstyle. For example, Ascension literally gives you fly for a short time, great for repositioning, escaping, or setting up a void kill. Celestial Assault is amazing for mix-up, it's fast, clean, and hard to read, and even Sinister Halo messes with your opponent's parry timing, making it easier to land follow-ups or throw off their rhythm entirely. Even outside of bird builds, Starkindred is really solid. The wings give you great vertical mobility, and the roll cancel air slashes, where you get 3 quick hits midair, act like a pseudo mantra, adding extra damage pressure without using an actual slot. It's super versatile and honestly kinda terrifying in the right hands. So yeah, whether you're cheesing people off cliffs or just using the movement for smart vertical plays, Starkindred is 100% S tier in the current meta. Next up is Contractor, the OG depth ganker oath. This one's definitely been overshadowed lately by some of the newer, flashier oaths like Arcwarder or Starkindred, but honestly, people shouldn't sleep on Contractor. It still holds its own, especially if you know how to make the most out of its mantras. First off, you've got Judgment, which is hands down the strongest tool in the Contractor kit. It does great damage, and when you slap a Wayward Gem on it, it opens some really interesting combo potential. You can use it to pick off targets in the middle of a group fight, catching people lacking, or even force out their vent early, which is huge in depth ganks where cooldown management really matters. The other 2 mantras are a bit more situational, but they're still useful if you know when to pull them out. Lord Slice only activates after you land a critical, which can be a little tricky depending on what weapon you're running, but when it hits, it has almost a no startup, and you can even use it to fling people off cliffs or into the void if you line it up right. Then there's Equalizer, which is a bit more of a high risk, high reward move like any other counter. You use Equalizer to counter someone's M1 or a crit or any mantra that, and you simply counter with either an Eclipse Kick or even a crit. Anything goes. But if you miss it, you're stuck in a ton of end lag, and in a big gank, that usually means death. So yeah, use it wisely. Now the cool part, Contractor has 0 stat requirements, so you don't have to build around it at all. The only real downside is that you'll need to farm rep with the divers for a bit, or else they'll just hunt you down near Castle Light. But besides that, it's just a clean pick for builds that want extra damage and control tools without sacrificing points. There aren't any major talents tied to it, so the value is all in the mantras, but they still pack a punch when used right. Overall, Contractor is a solid B tier, not meta defining anymore, but definitely still relevant if you play it smart. Alright, next up is Linkstrider, the team support oath. let me be real with you. If you're playing solo, don't even think about using Linkstrider. This oath is made specifically for team coordination, and if you try to run it alone, you're basically just throwing one of your oath slots in the trash. But the moment you've got the coordinated squad, Linkstrider becomes absolutely game-changing. Like, I'm not even joking, if your team has a Linkstrider, you can literally win fights off that alone. Support builds aren't really my specialty, but I've seen what this oath can do when it's in the right hands. First off, the healing is absolutely nuts. You can restore an entire bar of health, which is crazy when timed correctly during team fights. It's not just passive healing either. You drain HP from enemies nearby, which means you're not only helping your team, while you're also punishing the enemy team just for being close. And don't even get me started on the synergy with Vow of Mastery. That combo should actually get nerfed. So with commands like live or fight, you're turning your teammates into literal war machines while giving them sustain and control options that most other oaths just can't match. In bigger depth ganks, having even one Linkstrider on your team is scary, but when there's two, it's simply over. I've seen entire fights where the opposing side just ran the moment they saw support builds show up, me included. They knew they weren't going to win the sustain war. It's that simple. Linkstrider doesn't care about dealing damage or being flashy. It's all about keeping your team alive, stable, and in control of the fight. If you like being the backbone of your squad, this is the oath for you. So yeah, clear S tier in a team setting, no doubt about it. But if you're solo, honestly, it drops all the way down to like D tier or something. It's one of those oaths that really only works in the right context, but when it does, it's insanely powerful. Next, we've got Dawnwalker, and man, this oath is like the end of old Deepwoken and the beginning of the new flashy oath meta. Back when this oath dropped, it was actually hyped. Flashy moves, cool names in your playstyle. It really felt like the start of something new, but now you barely see anyone using it anymore. And there's a reason for that. The problem with Dawnwalker isn't that it's bad, it's just that the newer oaths completely outshine it. Most of what it offers is either outdated, replaced by stronger options, or just doesn't synergize as well with the current gank meta. Now, to be fair, it's not all bad. There are two things from Dawnwalker that are actually still useful today. First off is Radiant Kick, a teleporting move that hits hard and can potentially lead to some really fun combos, especially if you build around it. The animation is clean, the range is solid, and it's just a fun tool to catch people off guard. And the second is the talent Luminous Flash, which is basically a black flash from Jujutsu Kaisen ripoff, and it's actually cracked for M1 based builds. When it procs, your next basic attack hits the damage hard cap at 1.75 times damage. It dazes the target, and you get plus 45 tempo instantly. That's a massive spike in pressure, and it makes your trades feel way more impactful, especially if you're already winning the tempo game. But beyond these two, yeah, it simply just falls off. The other mantras don't really bring much to the table. Radiant Dawn, you know, the breakdance move, honestly does more harm than good. It gives your opponent a ton of auto parry frames, and you'll end up taking more damage than you deal if you use it recklessly. So while Dawnwalker still looks good and has some niche value, it just doesn't keep up with the current meta. No real utility, no defensive tools, and the stuff that does work is super specific. I'll give it credit where it's due, it's still pretty good, but at this point it's just kinda forgotten. That's why Dawnwalker goes into B tier. It's time for my personal favorite oath right now, Bladeharper. I'm gonna be real with you, this oath I'm running on literally all of my builds at the moment. It's just that fun, rewarding, and honestly kind of busted if you play right. Bladeharper is all about burst damage. Everything about it revolves around hitting hard, hitting fast, and snowballing off your momentum. It's one of those oaths where if you're already doing good damage, the game's just like, yo, have some more damage because you deserve it, and it's free. The oath is a little techy to use since you've got to manage the true form activations, and it's not as brain dead as some others. But once you get a feel for it, that rhythm is super clean. It's also very satisfying to weave in the mantras, the true form activations, and the passive bonuses mid-combat. All of the mantras are purely offensive. You're not healing, you're not dodging, You're just applying pressure 24/7. Even the pseudo mantra, the flow like a butterfly, is really sick. It hides some animations, lets you bait reactions, and just keeps your opponent guessing the whole time. That said, there are some downsides. Bladeharper doesn't really help you survive. You don't get defensive passives, you don't get extra movement options, and if you mess up your timing, you're probably gonna get punished hard. There's a little bit of a glass cannon vibe here, especially in depth ganks, where you can't always control who jumps you. But if you play aggressive, play smart, and know how to rotate your kit properly, Bladeharper just melts people. You can dismantle someone's health bar in seconds, and once you activate True Form, it's over. No joke, the pressure this ult applies is unmatched. It forces your opponent to play reactively the whole time, and if they mess up once, they're gone. They're simply wiped. For me, Bladeharper is a clear S tier right now, and it's one of my favorite ults in the whole entire game. Next up, Chainwarden, and this one's in kind of a weird spot right now. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty good, and I've actually run this ult a lot in the past. I'm still kind of surprised it's not more popular, but I guess it just comes down to where the meta's at right now. Chainwarden comes with a set of hard-hitting mantras, and the chain mechanic it applies is actually really nice for punishing movement. If you land the right mantra, you can chain someone and keep them from running off. Well, kind of. They can still get out with a dash or movement tech, but in general, they're not escaping on foot once you land that chain. It gives you this nice sense of control, like you're always keeping pressure on whoever you're targeting. But the issue is, other ults just do it better. If you want raw damage, Bladeharper is right there. It's flashier, smoother, and it just hits harder while applying more consistent pressure. And if you're looking for utility or survivability, Chainwarden doesn't really give you much in that department either. It doesn't offer mobility tools, it doesn't give you any defensive options, and while the mantras are strong, yes, they don't really compete with what's currently dominating the depth gank meta. It's kind of one of those ults that just got left behind, not because it's bad, but because it's just not quite meta enough to justify over something more optimized. So yeah. While I've had fun with Chainwarden, and I still think it's pretty underrated, it doesn't bring quite enough to the table in today's gank meta. So that's why I'm placing it safely in B tier. Okay, time to talk about the one oath I absolutely despise, Saltchemist. I hate fighting against it, I hate running it myself. Don't get me wrong, I love it when someone on my team has it, but I'm not gonna lie to you, this ult is really strong when used right. Saltchemist takes the game's potion system, which already has some insane effects, and just pushes it to its absolute limits. You get access to a whole lab's worth of custom brews, and depending on how you spec your build, you can create potions that either cripple enemies or fully support your squad. The scariest thing by far? The Insanity Potion, that in recent updates it kinda got nerfed. But if you're up against a Saltchemist and you don't have a good chunk of willpower, you're in trouble, because just 3 or 4 potions is enough to make your head pop. No fight needed, no damage trades, just potions, stun, explode. Even if it doesn't go that far, the Insanity stacks stun you hard, which is more than enough for a follow-up combo or a gank finish. And it gets even worse in organized groups. You throw together a squad of Saltchemists, and each one's running specialized brews. Like one for health regen, another for ether regen, maybe one with damage reduction potions. And suddenly, your team is buffed up while the enemy is either too stunned to fight or already dead from mind-breaking cocktails. The reason I personally don't enjoy using it is because the oath itself doesn't give you anything flashy, like no mantras, no combat passives, no raw power in a fight. It's all about the setup, the potions, the prep work. And while that's not my playstyle, I can't pretend it's not effective. In the right hands, Saltchemist is a serious problem, especially in the depths where confusion, chaos, and airstrike builds are everywhere. So even though I hate every single second of seeing it, I'm putting Saltchemist in A tier, maybe even S tier if it's being used in a squad of Saltchemists. Now let's talk about Silentheart, and man, this ult has seen better days. After the rework, it kind of fell off, and to be honest, it's been struggling to keep up ever since. The whole point of Silentheart is to let you maximize your M1 damage. That's it. You don't get mantras, you don't get flashy combos or team utility. What you do get is the ability to run 6 proficiency and still have access to a couple of mix-ups, which is something most other builds can't do. Normally, if you go 6 proficiency on any other oath, you're locked out of mantras completely. That leaves you with raw M1s and nothing else. But Silentheart gives you those pseudo mantras to keep pressure up. It's a simple but effective design for people who want to hit hard and end fights fast. That said, the kit just isn't what it used to be. One of the biggest problems right now is that some of the moves are actually bugged. I'm mainly talking about the aerial attack chase. You know, the one that's supposed to help you close gaps mid-combo, and half of the time it just doesn't even work. It'll randomly fizzle out and leave you hanging midair, which is super frustrating in high stakes fights. The damage is still definitely there. Experienced Silentheart players can do really well in both 1v1s and group fights, just because of how hard they can punish mistakes. If you land your M1s consistently, you'll absolutely delete people. But there's no mobility, no real survivability, and if you're low and need to run, forget it. Silentheart's not helping you escape anything. It's a commitment oath. You're in it for the fight, not for running away or outplaying. It's got some strengths, especially in pure damage builds, but with the bugs and lack of utility, it's not meta anymore. So yeah, for me, Silentheart goes into C tier. It's still viable, still strong in the right hands, but with the recent changes to the damage, it's definitely not what it used to be. And now, we've got Soulbreaker, one of my personal favorites and a top pick for depth gankers everywhere. This O is just insanely useful across the board. It gives you offensive pressure, mobility, utility, and even information control, which is low-key one of the most powerful things you can have in ganks. Let's start with the mantras, because every single one of them has value. First, there's Ardor Slicer, a ranged attack that does crazy damage. It has basically no startup animation and is super hard to react to. It's one of those mantras that just punishes people for existing, and it absolutely shreds if you land it. Then there's Rhythm Advance, which is honestly one of the coolest utility moves in the game. It shows you your opponent's current HP, and if you time it right, it lets you negate all fall damage, which is actually huge in depths where verticality matters a lot. It's useful in combat, in chases, in escapes. It just covers a lot. And lastly, you've got Tacit Kick. It's probably the weakest of the three, but it's still a teleport move, which means you can use it to chase down runners, close gaps, or apply pressure fast. It's not flashy, but it does the job. But the mantras are just the start. What really makes Soulbreaker terrifying is the fact that you get access to all 3 murmurs in the game: Rhythm, Ardor, and Tacit, and you get upgraded versions of them. Rhythm turns into an ESP ability that shows you every player nearby across a huge range. That means no one's sneaking up on you, and you can sniff out gank squads before they even move. Ardor Scream gets a range increase and a lower ether cost, making it even easier to tag enemies and prevent logouts. Basically, a built-in anti-combat log tool. And Tacit is just Tacit. Even though it has an ability that lets you teleport inside a circle, it doesn't really do that much. But the absolute best part of this O, and what it makes it so strong in depth gank, is that whenever someone dodges your attack, you get to see their remaining HP. That single mechanic lets you instantly decide whether it's worth finishing the fight or dipping out. That kind of information advantage is massive, especially in unpredictable depth fights where you never know if a third party is about to roll up. So yeah, amazing damage, check. Movement tools, check. Complete information control, and a fully upgraded Murmur kit. Soulbreaker is absolutely S tier. And for anyone who plays smart and aggressive, it's one of the best oaths in the game right now. Alright, let's talk about Fadetrimmer, the favorite oath of the new gens, and honestly, it's kinda hilarious how it's both a meme and low-key usable at the same time. This oath is basically free, like the actual unlock requirement is just annoying a barber until they snap, that's it. No stat investments, no trolls, no depth runs, just go make someone mad and boom, you're in. Now obviously this oath was meant to be a joke, but somehow it still carved out a little niche in the meta, which is kinda wild in my opinion. Fadetrimmer gives you 2 mantras and a tool. That's the entire kit, and while it's not anything flashy, it's surprisingly functional in some situations. First, you've got Clean Shave, which is honestly the strongest part of the kit. It's a dash style move that's great for chasing people down, closing gaps, or just catching people with unexpected pressure. It feels clean, fast, and works way better than you'd think coming from an Oath with scissors. Then there's Precision Cuts, which does solid damage, but the trade-off is that it's pretty easy to parry. You can still get value out of it in chaotic fights, but don't expect to land it often in a 1v1 against anyone with decent reaction time. The most interesting part of the kit is honestly the tool you get with it, since it lets you heal teammates for I think up to 5%. That kind of utility is actually valuable in depth ganks, but the big problem, you can't heal yourself. And that kind of defeats the purpose in solo situations or when you're the one getting targeted. So yeah, for an Oath that's clearly meant to be a joke, it's surprisingly not terrible. It has a couple of decent tools, some fun interactions, and I've seen people use it semi-seriously. At the end of the day, you're working with just 2 mantras and a heal tool that doesn't really help you yourself, which really limits its potential. So while it's got meme value and I respect anyone rocking it in real fights, I'm putting Fadetrimmer in C tier. Last up, we've got Saintsworn, and honestly, this O was really fun at launch, but it got toned down fast, and now I almost never see anyone run it in depth ganks or even overworld fights. And the reason why is actually pretty simple. The investment cost is insane. Saintsworn has the highest stat requirement of any Oath in the game right now. You need 100 points minimum just to access it. For reference, a character only gets 330 total stat points, and that 100 point tax basically kills your flexibility. You can forget about picking high impact stuff like assassination, reinforced armor, or any non-attunement talents. There's just no room left. And it's not just the stat issue, the progression system is also extremely tedious. You've gotta beat world bosses just to progress the Oath, and while that sounds cool on paper, in practice it's just time consuming and not really worth the payoff. The kit itself has some cool ideas like the combos using upgraded hero blades, and there's definitely some style in how it plays, but that's about it. If you compare it to something like attunementless build, where you have way more freedom with your talents and still get solid damage and pressure, Saintsworn just starts to look worse in every way. The mantras don't do anything crazy, the damage isn't game breaking or anything, and the investment cost completely locks you out of the meta-defining talents that make most builds shine in ganks. All of that adds up to one thing: this Oath just isn't viable in the current environment. So as much as I wish it was better, I'm putting Saintsworn firmly in C tier. Alright, that's gonna do it for the Deepwoken Oath tier list. Whether you agree or think I completely fumbled it, let me know what your list would look like in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, sub if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.